With a series like Pokémon, which has been around for over 20 years now, and has extended its reach in almost all forms of media, there's bound to be plenty of theories, conspiracies, and myths in regards to the franchise, some of which are pretty well founded, and have evidence to back them up, some of which, no. From some well-known theories and mysteries like Missing No and Hypno's Lullaby, to some darker and more obscure ones, today we're going to take a look at a lot of them in this video. Hey guys, Astral Antonio here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Pokémon Iceberg. This iceberg was originally posted to Reddit by the user SomeoneAJZ on the r/Pokemon forum. Before we dive into the depths, let me explain how this iceberg thing works. If you want to skip the explanation, skip ahead to the time on the screen now. An iceberg is a chart consisting of a picture of an iceberg that is split into segments, with the segments being filled with myths, theories, and obscure topics regarding a specific theme. The lower the segment/layer on the iceberg, the more obscure or unknown the topics will be. Now, with the explanation and intro out of the way, let's take a deep dive into the Pokémon Iceberg. Pokémon is short for pocket monsters. This one is already pretty well known, hence why it's on the top of this iceberg, but to give a quick explanation, in Japan they called Pokémon pocket monsters, but when it came to America, its name was shortened to Pokémon. Shiny Pokémon. Shiny Pokémon are a rare phenomena that only appear every 1 out of 8,192 Pokémon encounters. All they are Pokémon that have had their color palette changed, with some of them looking cool, and some of them looking, well, pointless. Ekans and Arbok. If you look at the names for the Pokemon Ekans and Arbok, and flip them around, you can see that their names are just Snake and Cobra backwards. You can do this with other Pokemon too, like Muck, which is, well, I'm sure you can figure it out. Jynx controversy. Looking at Jynx's design, you may not see much wrong with it. However, the design we know now has been revised from its original design. Looking at older Pokemon media, we can see that Jynx's skin used to be black instead of purple. This obviously caused some discourse in the United States, since some people could interpret Jynx's design to be a play on blackface. However, it was never intended to be blackface, as Jynx was based off of a Japanese yokai called Yuki Onna. Lavender Town Syndrome. Lavender Town Syndrome is a creepypasta story that claims that the original music for Lavender Town in Pokemon Red and Green caused children to go crazy and harm themselves. This was due to the fact that the original version had notes that were extremely high-pitched, and apparently only children can hear these notes, as the frequency was too high for adults to hear. YouTuber Yuri of Wind has a pretty good video about Lavender Town Syndrome that I'll link down below if you want a more complete explanation. Blue's Raticate passes away on the SSN. During a playthrough of Pokemon Red or Blue, you have to battle your rival named Blue multiple times. Pretty early on in the game, Blue catches a Rattata that is a couple levels lower than the rest of his team. When you battle Blue on the SSN, his Rattata has evolved into Eradicate, and it's only level 16. This is odd because Eradicate is supposed to evolve at level 20. Sometime later after defeating your rival in the SSN, you meet him in Lavender Town, in the Pokemon Tower, which is a tall building that serves as a resting place for deceased Pokemon. When Blue sees you, he'll question why you're there, as you don't seem to have any deceased Pokemon with you. He will then battle you, with one jarring difference. His Raticate is gone. This has led players to believe that after your battle with Blue on the SSN, you severely wounded his weak level 16 Raticate, and since Blue may not have been able to get to a Pokemon Center in time, his Raticate, unfortunately, passed away. Creepy Pokédex entries. Throughout all of the Pokemon games, some of the Pokédex entries have been, well, a little concerning. I'll give a few examples. Gengar's Sun and Moon entry. Should you feel yourself attacked by a sudden chill, it is evidence of an approaching Gengar. There's no escaping it. Give up. Bayonet Ultra Sun entry. It's a stuffed toy that was thrown away and became possessed, ever searching for the one who threw it away so it can exact its revenge. Drifloon Sun entry. Stories go that it grabs the hands of small children and drags them away into the afterlife. It dislikes heavy children. There are plenty of other examples, and I could go on for quite a bit just reading them to you, but for the sake of time, let's move on. The Porygon Epilepsy Incident. The 38th episode of the original Pokemon anime, called Electric Soldier Porygon, was never aired in the US, only being aired once in Japan back on December 16, 1997. The reason it never aired was due to one fact. Within the episode, there are segments that contain disorienting, flashing visual effects. This caused almost 700 Japanese children to be hospitalized due to the episode causing them to have epileptic seizures. Luckily, from what I could find, there was no casualties linked to this incident. Mew under the truck. This is an old legend or myth that states that the legendary Pokemon Mew is located under a truck near the SS Anne. However, if you perform the glitch to get over to this truck, you'll find that Mew is not there. However, there is a way to glitch the game to get a Mew without using cheats. I'll leave a link in the description to a video showcasing how to obtain Mew. Cubone is a baby Kangaskhan. This theory states that Cubone is a baby Kangaskhan whose mother has passed away. Stricken with grief, Cubone would hold on to its mother's skull and one of her bones in an attempt to keep her with him. There's a similar theory that Cubone is a Charmander, but since Game Freak has never claimed that either theory is true, it's up for you to decide. Missing No. Missing No, whose name means missing number, is a glitch that can be found within multiple Pokemon games. However, the one I want to talk about is the original one found in Pokemon Red and Blue. Performing a certain set of actions, then surfing on the shore of Cinnabar Island will allow the player to find Missing No, whose body is made up of a glitchy L-shaped block. Catching Missing No is known to cause other glitches to occur, including corrupting your save file. Back in the day, there were plenty of theories about what Missing No could be, ranging from him being a 4th legendary bird Pokemon, to him being something called a Pokegod, but we'll talk about Pokegods later. Real animals. There are a couple of times that real-life animals have been seen or mentioned in the Pokemon franchise, with most of these incidents occurring in the older Pokemon media, such as the original anime and old Pokemon cards. This is weird, because aren't Pokemon supposed to be the animals of the Pokemon world? Well, yes, but this could have just been an oversight by animators working on the Pokemon anime, and artists drawing the illustrations of old Pokemon cards. Ash is in a coma. This theory originates from a creepypasta, in which it claims that the reason Ash hasn't aged after all these years is because he is in a coma. In the first episode of the Pokemon anime, Ash accidentally angers a Spearow, who then goes to get his friends. The Spearows then start chasing Ash, causing him to steal Misty's bike. It starts raining and Ash falls. In an attempt to save Pikachu, Ash bravely stands between Pikachu and the swarm of charging Spearows. Then, right before Ash can be attacked, Pikachu jumps in between Ash and the Spearows, letting out a Thunderbolt attack right as he's struck by lightning. This causes Pikachu's attack to become supercharged, and a massive shockwave of lightning is sent out. This is when the theory claims that Ash was put into a coma, and all of his adventures are just him dreaming while he's in the hospital. If you want a more in-depth coverage of this story, I'll leave a link in the description of this video. Now, let's move on from the clear skies to the tip of the iceberg. Ditto is a failed Mew clone. Ditto and Mew have a lot of similarities. First off, look at their color. They're both pink. Their shiny variations are also the same color too, both of which being blue. They both are also some of the only Pokemon that are able to use the move Transform. The biggest piece of evidence that Ditto is a failed Mew clone is where they can be encountered. They can be encountered in the Pokemon Mansion on Cinnabar Island, and in Cerulean Cave. The Pokemon Mansion is where Mewtwo was created, and Cerulean Cave is where you can find Mewtwo. Ditto's being in both locations suggests that they have some connection with Mewtwo, and in turn, Mew. Bill's Secret Garden. Bill's Secret Garden is a supposed area in the original Red and Blue games. If you look at Bill's house, there's an empty area behind it, leading many people to wonder if it was an accessible area. There are many theories and myths on how to reach Bill's Secret Garden and what is contained within it. The most famous way of entering Bill's Secret Garden involves throwing a book that is given to you by Professor Oak after beating the Elite Four repeatedly at the machinery at the back of Bill's house. This will cause Bill's machines to explode and open the entrance to his secret garden. The secret garden is said to be the home of the Pokegods, which I'll talk about later, and also a Pokeball containing Venusaur, a fusion Pokemon consisting of Blastoise and Venusaur. Pokerus. Pokerus is short for Pokemon Virus, and it's a rare virus that can affect your Pokemon. First appearing in the Generation 2 games, the Pokerus is not a negative thing. In fact, it's actually beneficial to your Pokemon to get the infection, as it allows them to gain effort values, more commonly called EVs, twice as fast as normal. Contracting the Pokerus is random, and it's less likely to occur than finding a shiny Pokemon. Wailord is less dense than air. The Pokemon Wailord is a large whale Pokemon that made its first appearance all the way back in Gen 3 in the games Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. Due to its large size, you may assume that it's a heavy Pokemon, and it is, weighing in at 877.4 pounds, or 398 kilograms for my non-American viewers. However, some of the games refer to Wailord as the blimp Pokemon, and it can be seen in both the games and in the anime floating. This is because even though 877.4 pounds is really heavy, due to its large size of 47 feet and 7 inches, or 14.5 meters, its density is actually not that great. This means that Wailord is lighter than air. Hypno is a predator. This theory stems from some of Hypno's Pokédex entries. Hypno's Pokédex entry in Fire Red reads, "It carries a pendulum-like device. There was once an incident in which it took away a child it hypnotized." And in Pokemon Gold's entry, it states, "When it is very hungry, it puts humans it meets to sleep. Then, it feasts on their dreams." Both of these entries are quite disturbing, especially the one from Fire Red that states that Hypno kidnapped a child. This Pokédex entry has spawned a creepypasta known as Hypno's Lullaby, and I'll leave a link in the description to a reading of it for those who want to hear it. Lost Silver. Lost Silver is a creepypasta about the game Pokemon Silver. It's about a haunted/hacked version of Pokemon Silver where plenty of quote-unquote creepy stuff happens. There is a ROM of Lost Silver that can be found online, and for the sake of time, I'll also leave a link in the description of a reading of this creepypasta. Glitch City. Glitch City is a glitch occurring in Pokemon Red and Blue. I'm going to quote an article I found online to explain how to enter Glitch City, and I'll link the article down below. Glitch City can be accessed by executing a series of steps in the Kanto Safari Zone. Specifically, the player should enter a Safari game, then, immediately after entering, attempt to leave the Safari Zone. When the attendant asks if the player wants to leave early, the player should answer no, and then re-enter the Safari Zone rather than actually leave. The game should now be saved and reset. When the player now attempts to leave the Safari Zone again, the attendant will instead ask if the player would like to join the Safari game, to which the player should answer no, and leave through the south exit. After taking 500 steps at any location other than the Safari Zone, the Safari Zone's PA will ring, and the player will be warped into the Safari Zone gate. By leaving the gate through the south exit, the player can enter Glitch City. Unquote. Glitch City is a mess of glitched out towns, and a version of it can also be accessed in Pokemon Gold and Silver. Peekablue. Peekablue refers to this picture of a pink mouse-like Pokemon. Peekablue was originally thought to be a water-type evolution for Pikachu, but in the Pokemon short, Pikachu's Summer Vacation, it was revealed that Pikachu was actually a new Pokemon entirely, called Marill, having no connection to the Pikachu evolution line. Weird egg group pairings. There are 14 different egg groups in the Pokemon games. Pokemon in the same egg groups have the ability to breed and make eggs when they are left in the Pokemon daycare together. This all seems fine and good until you look at what Pokemon can breed together. Blastoise and Stunfisk are in the water egg group, so they can breed. Mareanie and Corsola can breed, which is weird considering that the Pokédex states that Corsola is one of Marienie's main prey. And also, Skitty and Wailord are also in the same egg group, which I don't even want to think about how that works. And I'm getting uncomfortable now, so let's move on. The inside of a Pokeball. There has been plenty of speculation on what's on the inside of a Pokeball. How are these small orbs able to fit such large creatures within them? Some theories range from the Pokeballs being portals to different dimensions, to the Pokeballs being able to shrink whatever Pokemon it captures. I believe the second theory, that the Pokeballs shrink the Pokemon to be able to contain them because of one thing. In the manga series, Pokemon Adventures, there are multiple scenes showing tiny versions of the Pokemon contained within them. So, if that's the case, being in a Pokeball may not be so fun for your team. Buried alive in the white hand. These two things originate from the games Pokemon Red and Blue. In Lavender Town, there's a little girl that is standing outside of the Pokemon Tower. When you approach and speak to her, she asks if you believe in ghosts or not. If you answer no, she will say that the white hand on your shoulder must be a figment of her imagination. Supposedly, there is code contained in Pokemon Red and Blue labeled as whitehand.gif. If you encounter the white hand, it's said to have multiple animations, which is weird because Pokemon didn't have animations in Red and Blue. The same can be said for Buried Alive, both of which have creepypastas linked to them, which I'll link down below. The legendary beasts were originally the Eevee trio. In Pokemon Gold and Silver, you were told an ancient tale about 3 legendary beasts. In the tale, 3 Pokemon were within the burned tower when it burned down due to a lightning strike, and the 3 Pokemon ended up passing away. Ho-Oh used his ability to revive these 3 deceased Pokemon, with them becoming the legendary dog Pokemon, Entei, Raikou, and Suicune. But what were these Pokemon before they were the legendary dogs? If we take a look at their types, Entei being fire, Raikou being electric, and Suicune being water, we can see some similarities to the 3 evolutions. Theory goes that the deceased Pokemon were Flareon, the fire type, Jolteon, the electric type, and Vaporeon, the water type. When they were resurrected by Ho-Oh's magic, they were also made more powerful, resulting in the 3 legendary dogs. Uri Geller's sue over Kadabra. Uri Geller is a magician slash self-proclaimed psychic that is most famous for his spoon-bending trick. You can probably see where this is going. In the year 2000, Geller sued the Pokemon Company, claiming that Game Freak had used his likeness to create Kadabra. To quote Geller, "Nintendo turned me into an evil, occult Pokemon character. Nintendo stole my identity by using my name and my signature image." However, Geller has recently forgiven Pokemon, claiming that his granddaughters had helped him change his mind about the ordeal, stating, "I admit I was a fool. It was a devastating mistake for me to sue Pokemon. Forgive me." So, at least this one has a happy ending. The Ghost Girl from X and Y. In Lumio City, in the games Pokemon X and Y, there's a strange occurrence that can happen if you enter the 2nd floor of a certain building. Once you enter the 2nd floor, a girl with purple hair appears and states, "No, you're not the one," before disappearing. Nobody is quite sure what her role in the game is, but the main theory is that she'll only do something if the trainer has a certain ID number, but nothing has ever been proven. I guess the only way to find out would be to meet the Ghost Girl for yourself. Pokemon revealed prior to their generations. There are many Pokemon that would be revealed in the anime before the games they would appear in were released. The most famous example of this being Ho-Oh, being revealed in the first episode of the Indigo League anime. The second most famous thing being Togepi, which became one of Misty's Pokemon in the anime. Donphan was also shown at the very beginning of the first Pokemon movie, and Meryl and Snubbull were first shown in Pikachu's Vacation. All of these Pokemon are from Johto, but they were all revealed before the Johto games, Gold and Silver, came out. There are other Pokemon I could talk about here, but for the sake of time, let's move on. Professor Oak's Battle. In Pokemon Red and Blue, you were originally going to be able to battle Professor Oak after beating the game. His team would consist of an Arcanine, Gyarados, Tauros, Exeggutor, and the last starter that neither you or your rival picked. It's unknown as to why this battle was removed from the games, but the cool thing is you can still access it by using glitches or cheats using a Game Shark. The Great Pokemon War. Lieutenant Surge, 3rd gym leader in Pokemon Red and Blue, is the main reason this theory exists. In fact, it's not even a theory, as Surge will straight up tell you that he is a war veteran. Surge claims that his Pokemon helped keep him alive in the war, and that they will help him defeat you. Thinking about a war that uses Pokemon is terrifying, considering all the powers they have, and Surge is lucky to be alive after facing an ordeal like that. With that said, this layer of the iceberg is done, so let's finally dive below the water. Bad Egg. The Bad Egg is an occurrence that first appeared in Generation 3, but it's been in numerous other Pokemon games as well. It's a glitched or corrupted egg that can occur when you use a cheating device such as a Game Shark or an action replay. If you find yourself in possession of a bad egg, no matter what you do, don't hatch it, as hatching it can cause your game to freeze, and there have even been reports of hatched bad eggs corrupting save files. Capsule Monsters. Capsule Monsters is the original name for Pokemon before they settled on the name Pocket Monsters. The name Capsule Monsters derives from the toy containing capsules that can be obtained from the Japanese gacha machines. If you look at some of these capsules, you can see that even the Pokeball was designed to look like one of the capsules. Butterfree and Venomoth switch. It has long been rumored that the 2 Pokemon Butterfree and Venomoth were accidentally implemented into the wrong evolutionary line. Looking at their design, it's pretty easy to see why many people have come to this conclusion. Butterfree and Venomoth look nothing like their pre-evolutions. But looking at Butterfree and Venonat, we can see many similarities between them, with them both having big red eyes, similar shaped feet and hands, similar antennae, and their bodies are both purple. Looking at Venomoth and Caterpie, they have some similarities as well, with them having similar eyes, and both having lines going along their abdomen. So, were Butterfree and Venomoth accidentally switched? Nobody knows for sure. Jirachi on the Moon. There's an old fan theory that in the Gen 3 games, Jirachi would have been obtainable by taking a rocket to the moon. I can't really find much info on this one, so let's move on. Bird type. Bird type was the original name for flying Pokemon in Generation 1. They scrapped it, for what I can only assume to be that flying type is a lot more inclusive sounding than bird type. After all, not only birds fly. However, the bird type can still be seen with the famous missing no glitch. The real Wobbuffet is the tail. This theory states the Wobbuffet is an evolved form of the Pokemon Unknown. Looking at his tail, we can see that it kinda looks similar to Unknown, with both of them being black and having white eyes with no iris. According to the theory, Wobbuffet's main body is just a substitute or distraction to protect the tail, where supposedly its brain is. This is why Wobbuffet is so resilient, and why it doesn't ever seem to open its eyes. Or it could just be related to Brock. Who knows? Giovanni's suicide. After the events that take place in Pokemon Red and Blue, Team Rocket's leader Giovanni goes missing. After being defeated a couple times by the Pokemon trainer Red, Giovanni leaves his role as leader of Team Rocket, also leaving behind his other role as Viridian City gym leader. 3 years after his disappearance, during the course of Pokemon Gold and Silver's story, Team Rocket is still looking for Giovanni so that he may once again lead them. But this is all to no avail. Without their fearless leader, Team Rocket crumbles, being no more. This has led many people to come up with the theory that after realizing that his plans for Team Rocket were never going to happen, Giovanni committed suicide. However, this just isn't true, as in Pokemon Sun and Moon, Giovanni makes a reappearance, now calling his gang Team Rainbow Rocket. Ho-Oh granted Ash immortality. This theory is kind of a counter-argument to the Ash's coma theory. This theory states that when Ash sees Ho-Oh in the first episode of the Pokemon anime, Ash becomes an immortal 10-year-old who will never age. If we look at some of Ho-Oh's Pokédex entries, we can see how this might be true. In Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, his entry states, "Its feathers are in 7 colors. It is said that anyone seeing it is promised eternal happiness." Throughout the franchise, Ho-Oh was known to have magical powers and to be a wish granter. So, maybe when Ash saw Ho-Oh all the way back in the first episode, he was granted eternal happiness, which of course for Ash would be to be able to continue his Pokemon journey with his friends forever. Censored sprites. Japan is well known for having more lax censorship laws than pretty much any other developed country in the world, at least when it comes to their media. We can see this primarily in anime, with scenes showing cleavage or cigarettes getting censored for Western audiences. But the Pokemon games are no different, and looking at some of the in-game sprites, we can see that there have been multiple changes that censored some of them outside of Japan. Other Pokegods. The Pokegods are supposed godlike or mythical Pokemon. Some of them are real, others, however, not so much. In fact, like I stated earlier in the video, Marill and Ho-Oh were once considered Pokegods, and there were supposedly Pokegods behind Bill's house in his secret garden. There were other Pokegods too, such as Doomsday and Doomsday. Most of the Pokegods are hoaxes, however. If you want a more in-depth look at Pokegods, I'll leave a link in the description below to a video talking about them. Spinda patterns. We all know Spinda, the cute orange and cream colored panda bear Pokemon, but did you ever notice that some of them look slightly different? This is because there are millions of different patterns that Spinda can be found sporting. Not much else to say, so let's move on. Gengar is Clefable's shadow. If you look at the Pokemon Clefable and Gengar, you can see a lot of similarities between the two. Their bodies are a similar shape, and they have similar ears and arms. Gengar is a ghost-type Pokemon that has the ability to morph into the shadows, so this has led many players to believe that Gengar is either the ghost of a Clefable, or some kind of alternate shadow form of Clefable. Genesect was a Cubatops. Genesect is a Generation 5 Pokemon that has many similarities to the Generation 1 Pokemon, Cubatops. People believe that Genesect is an altered Cubatops, and the Pokédex seems to back this up. One of Genesect's Pokédex entries states this: over 300 million years ago, it was feared as the strongest of hunters. Now, it has been modified by Team Plasma. This is interesting, because some of Cubatops' Pokédex entries state that it was also a good hunter from 300 million years ago. With these Pokédex entries, and their similar size, shape, and weight in mind, it's hard to think that they aren't related in some way. Shiny Pokemon in Gen 1. The Generation 1 games were originally released for the Nintendo Game Boy. Since the Game Boy couldn't display color, it's obvious to think that there aren't any shiny Pokemon to be found within these games. Shinies were introduced in Generation 2. However, shiny Pokemon can be found within the Gen 1 games, not by their appearance, but by their DVs, which are the old version of EVs from Gen 1 and 2. Check your Pokemon and see if they have these DVs: HP of 0 or 8, attack of 2, 3, 6, 7, 10, 11, 14, or 15, defense of 10, speed of 10, and special of 10. Then, if you transfer those Pokemon to the Gen 2 games, they'll be shiny. N is a Zoroark. This theory claims that N, a character from the Pokemon Black and White games and anime, is not a human at all, but actually a Pokemon known as Zoroark. To quote this article from CBR.com, on multiple occasions in the game, the player meets people that turn out to be Zoras or Zoroarks. In one instance, with the latter, a man even tells the player about Zoroarks before giving them a TM. Right after this, they step away and turn into a Zoroark before running off. This proves that Zoroarks can speak the human language, and even explains how N is capable of speaking to Pokemon. N also has a similar hairstyle to Zoroark. If this theory were true, then that would mean that N would be a Pokemon that is also a Pokemon trainer, similar to what Mewtwo did in the first movie. So, is N a Zoroark pretending to be human? You decide. Uncatchable shinies. This is every Pokemon trainer's worst nightmare: finding a shiny Pokemon, but not being able to catch it. This is actually possible, in multiple Pokemon games in fact, such as Pokemon Gold and Silver when you make your way to Mr. Pokemon's house. At this point in the game, if you find a shiny, you can't catch it due to the fact that you don't have any Pokeballs yet. However, there are shinies that if you find them, you can't catch them even if you do have Pokeballs. In Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, the old man that teaches you how to catch Pokemon battles a Weedle. This Weedle has a chance to be shiny, and since it's not your encounter, you can't catch it. Also in Lavender Town in the Pokemon Tower, the Marowak Ghost that you uncover using the Sylph Scope has a chance to be shiny as well. The Marowak Ghost can't be caught, so if it's shiny during your playthrough, you're out of luck. There are plenty of other examples of uncatchable shinies, just look them up online if you want to see them all. Mirage Island. Mirage Island is a small island that can be accessed in the Hoenn region in the Gen 3 games. To explain how to get to Mirage Island, I'm going to quote an article from Bulbapedia. Every day, a random number between 0 and 65,535 is generated by the game. If this number matches the first 2 bytes of the personality value of any Pokemon in the player's party, then the Mirage Island will appear. Consequently, Mirage Island can also be made to disappear and reappear for that day by removing and putting back the matching Pokemon in the party, and Mirage Island will disappear at the end of the day, barring the unlikely outcome of 2 matching numbers being generated in a row. This makes Mirage Island's appearance even rarer than encountering a shiny Pokemon, although the probability increases with the number of Pokemon the player has. The odds of a single Pokemon activating the Mirage Island is 1 in 65,536. This chance is increased to approximately 1 in every 10,923 if the player has a full party, assuming no 2 Pokemon in the player's party have the same first 2 bytes in their personality values. An old man in the southeastern hut in Pacific Log Town will tell the player whether or not he can see Mirage Island, allowing the player to check if they have a matching Pokemon without having to leave the town. Since Mirage Island's number does not change throughout any given day, it is possible for the player to freely move the Pokemon between boxes and the party while attempting to check if any Pokemon in the party matches the Mirage Island number. With that said, that ends this layer of the iceberg, so let's go even deeper, down to the midsection of the iceberg's body. The Hall of Origin. The Hall of Origin is an area in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl where you can catch the god of all Pokemon, Arceus. In the remakes, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, the Hall of Origin is renamed, now being called the Temple of Sinnoh. Soft locks. A soft lock is an occurrence within a video game in which the game is still running, but you can't leave the area you're in, or make any type of progress. So the game hasn't crashed, but since you usually need to reset your system to escape a soft lock, it might as well have. These types of soft locks can also be found in the Pokemon series of games as well, even going all the way back to the Gen 1 games. In Pokemon Red and Blue, if you speak to the old man that teaches you how to catch Pokemon while you have a full party and your PC box is full, the tutorial won't be able to finish for some reason, and this will soft lock the game. In the Gen 3 games, the game will soft lock if the player uses the Pokemon move Teleport to teleport back to Dewford from Petalburg. Doing this means that Mr. Briny isn't there to ferry you across the ocean, and you don't have Pokemon that know the moves Fly or Surf yet. This means that the only way to get out of Dewford is to reset your game, so don't try this if you haven't saved for a while. There are other instances of this occurring in other Pokemon games, but for the sake of time, let's move on. Rhydon was the first Pokemon. Ken Sugimori, the creator of Pokemon, has stated that Rhydon was the first Pokemon to ever be designed. This is why the series pays tribute to Rhydon, with statues of him appearing in multiple games throughout the series. Weird Pokédex measurements. I think this refers to how some Pokédex entries, the height or weight of a Pokemon may not be what you expected. Here's some examples. Go-Goat is a goat, so you might expect him to be around 2 or 3 feet tall, like goats in real life. However, Go-Goat is actually 5 feet and 7 inches tall, or 1.7 meters. That's a huge goat. 2 Pokemon that I assumed must be huge when I was a kid were Nidoking and Nidoqueen. From their appearance, you might expect them to be at least 6 feet tall. However, the Pokédex states that they're only 4 feet and 7 inches, or 1.4 meters tall. Kinda makes them less intimidating. The last one I want to bring up is Dunsparce, who, from his appearance, you might assume that he's around the same size as a Caterpie, but Dunsparce is actually 4 feet and 11 inches, or 1.5 meters long. Wow. Drunk old man in Viridian City. Bringing up the old man that teaches you how to catch Pokemon in the Kanto games again, some players theorize that he is drunk or hungover. This is because in Fire Red and Leaf Green, he can be seen lying on the ground in the middle of the path when you first see him. He is also rambling about how it's his property, which, that just isn't true. He's on a public path. Also, after he drinks his coffee, he acts completely normal. A lot of people in real life consume caffeine to feel less drunk, or to feel less hungover, so maybe this theory is true. Fire starters are based off of the Chinese zodiac. If you look at all the fire starters throughout the different generations of Pokemon, they all can be found on the Chinese zodiac chart. Charmander represents the dragon, Cyndaquil represents the rat, Torchic represents the rooster, Chimchar represents the monkey, Tepig represents the pig, Fennekin represents the dog, Litten represents the tiger, and Scorbunny represents the rabbit. This leaves the only animals left being the ox, the sheep, the horse, and the snake. However, with the Pokemon series' latest release, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Game Freak broke the chain, making the fire starter a crocodile, which is not on the zodiac chart. Other banned anime episodes. Earlier in the video, I talked about the banned episode Electric Soldier Porygon, which was banned for causing seizures. However, that isn't the only banned episode, it's just simply the most well-known example. I'm gonna skim over a couple of other banned episodes right now. Beauty and the Beach was banned because James wore a swimsuit and fake breasts in one part of the episode. Season 1 episode 35 was banned because when Ash goes to the Safari Zone, the warden points a gun at him. And episode 250 was banned because the main Pokemon that was focused on was Jinx, and they didn't use the purple skin redesign in the episode, with Jinx still having black skin. Earlier in the Iceberg, I talked about why this would be an issue. There's also other banned episodes too, but they are pretty easy to find info about online if you want to look at them. Evolved but underleveled NPC Pokemon. I already mentioned an example of this earlier in the video when I talked about Blue's Raticate, which is only level 16 even though Raticate evolves at level 20. There are other NPCs that have Pokemon that are evolved early too, with a lot of them being Team Rocket members who also have early evolved Raticates. This trainer has a level 22 Muck, even though Muck evolves at level 38, and this guy has an early evolved Magneton. There are plenty of other examples, and I could go on for a while just listing them to you, but let's move on. Missing No in Lumiose City. For this one, I'm just going to quote an article from the website thegamer.com. In 2013, websites like Kotaku posted articles about a strange occurrence that players had noticed in Lumiose City. If the player stands near the front door of the Boutique Couture and tries to manipulate the camera, then it's possible to see a shape that resembles the L-block appearance of the most famous form of Missing No. It turns out that the appearance of Missing No is, fittingly enough, the result of a graphics glitch, which has been discovered by YouTuber Shizes, who detailed the Missing No glitch in his video. So, no, Missing No is not in Lumiose City. Coughing and Wheezing's original names. The original names for the Pokemon Coughing and Wheezing were apparently going to be LA and NY. This, of course, was supposed to be referencing Los Angeles and New York, because those are the two smoggiest cities in the United States. Kind of funny. Changed Shinies. This refers to how some shiny Pokemon have had their colors slightly or drastically changed from their original Gen 2 shiny versions, with some examples being Raticate, Spinarak, Oddish, Arbok, and Charizard. One of the most interesting examples is Smeargle, because its shiny and non-shiny form were actually swapped in the later games. Surfable and fishable statues. This one's pretty quick. In Gen 1, the statues in the Pokemon gyms are able to be surfed in and fished in. It's a weird glitch, nothing more. Unknown King. The Unknown King is a Pokemon that originates from a creepypasta. With that said, I'll just link the story in the description below. That ends this layer, and subsequently, it ends the part 1 of my Pokémon Iceberg. Part 2 will be posted later this week, and will cover the rest of this iceberg. Please subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all in part 2. This has been Astral Antonio. Stay tuned. Thanks.